Number 1. John Titor, the soldier from 2036. In the quiet hum of early internet forums at the turn of the millennium, a figure emerged who would ignite decades of speculation, scrutiny, and obsession. Posting under the name John Titor, this individual claimed to be a time traveler from the year 2036, stationed in a future ravaged by civil war, nuclear conflict, and societal collapse. His first messages appeared in November 2000 on the Time Travel Institute forums and later gained traction on Art Bell's Coast to Coast AM radio show, an outlet already steeped in fringe theories and unexplained phenomena. What distinguished Titor from countless other online hoaxers was the astonishing specificity of his predictions, the technical coherence of his time machine description, and an eerie consistency that defied easy dismissal. He described a device built into a modified 1967 Chevrolet Corvette powered by two micro-singularities generated via a Tipler rotating cylinder, a concept loosely grounded in real theoretical physics proposed by Frank J. Tipler in the 1970s. According to Titor, his mission was twofold: retrieve an IBM 5100, computer critical for debugging legacy systems in his timeline, and return to his own era before the temporal window closed. Skeptics immediately pounced, noting that anyone with sufficient technical knowledge could fabricate such details. Yet Titor's predictions carried uncanny weight. He foretold a second American Civil War beginning around 2004-2005, triggered by rising political polarization and government overreach, a scenario that, while not unfolding exactly as described, resonates uncomfortably with contemporary social fractures. More strikingly, he predicted a limited nuclear exchange between the United States and Russia in 2015, which did not occur, but he claimed that divergent timelines meant his future was not necessarily ours. This invocation of the multiverse theory lent his narrative a frustrating but scientifically plausible escape hatch. Perhaps most compelling was his accurate description of the IBM 5100's obscure ability to read older IBM mainframe code, a fact so niche that IBM itself had not publicly confirmed it until years after Titor's posts vanished in early 2001. When asked why he didn't reveal more definitive proof, Titor responded with chilling pragmatism. Altering major events could fracture causality or strand him permanently. His final messages grew increasingly urgent, citing temporal instability and the need to return. Then, silence. No further posts, no reappearance. Over 20 decades later, researchers continue to dissect his writings. Some point to linguistic analysis suggesting military training. Others note inconsistencies in his physics explanations. But no one has conclusively proven John Titor was a hoax, nor definitively shown he was real. The mystery endures not because of wild claims, but because of the narrow corridor of plausibility he navigated, too detailed for pure fiction, too elusive for verification. In an age where deepfakes and AI-generated personas are commonplace, Titor's case stands apart, a pre-social media enigma that feels less like a prank and more like a message in a bottle from a timeline we narrowly avoided or have yet to enter.
Number 2. Rudolph Fentz, the 19th century man in 1950s Times Square. Long before the internet amplified urban legends into global phenomena, a chilling case circulated quietly among parapsychologists and science fiction circles, one that blurred the line between temporal displacement and psychological anomaly. In June 1950, according to reports later published by the American Journal of Parapsychology and popularized by author Jack Finney, a man appeared suddenly in the middle of Times Square, disoriented and dressed in clothing decades out of date. Witnesses described him as well-groomed but bewildered, wearing a frock coat, high-buttoned shoes, and a top hat, attire consistent with late 19th century fashion. He carried no identification, only a handful of obsolete coins, a copper token from a long-defunct saloon, and a letter addressed to a Rudolph Fentz at a Manhattan address that had been demolished in 1910. When police attempted to question him, he panicked, darted into traffic, and was struck and killed by a taxi. The ensuing investigation deepened the mystery. Records revealed a Rudolph Fentz had indeed lived in New York in the 1870s, but had vanished without a trace in 1876 at the age of 29. No death certificate existed, no grave, and yet here was a man matching his description, physically unchanged, appearing 74 years later with artifacts untouched by time. Skeptics argue the story originated not from police logs or newspaper archives, but from a 1951 sci-fi short story titled I'm Scared by Jack Finney, suggesting the entire account was fictional. Yet proponents counter that Finney may have embellished a real, suppressed incident, a tactic common during the Cold War when anomalous events were often buried under national security pretexts. What makes the Fentz case compelling isn't just the narrative, it's the plausibility of accidental time slips. Theoretical models involving quantum fluctuations, localized space-time curvature, or even undiscovered natural wormholes allow for the possibility of brief involuntary temporal displacement. If such an event occurred near a high-energy electromagnetic zone, like the dense electrical grid beneath Times Square, it might theoretically trigger a micro-temporal rift. The man's confusion, his inability to comprehend automobiles or neon signs, and his possession of period-accurate items all align with someone abruptly thrust into an alien future. Moreover, his immediate fatality prevented interrogation, leaving no voice to corroborate or deny his origin. Unlike modern hoaxes crafted for viral fame, this case emerged in an era with no social media, no incentive for fabrication beyond literary exercise, and yet it persists in declassified paranormal research files, including those referenced by the now defunct U.S. Air Force Project Blue Book as an unresolved chronological anomaly. Whether Rudolph Fentz was a victim of time, a figment of fiction, or a carefully constructed Cold War disinformation experiment remains unanswered. But his story endures as one of the earliest documented accounts of a man seemingly unmoored from his own century, walking out of the past and into a future that killed him within minutes.
Number 3. The Philadelphia Experiment Survivor. Carl Allen's Temporal Confession. Among the most enduring naval mysteries of the 20th century is the alleged Philadelphia Experiment, a rumored U.S. Navy project in 1943 that sought to render the destroyer escort USS Eldridge invisible to radar using powerful electromagnetic fields. Officially dismissed as myth, the story took a darker turn with the emergence of one man who claimed not only to have witnessed the event, but to have been thrown decades into the future by its catastrophic side effects. His name was Carl Meredith Allen, and his handwritten accounts sent to astronomer and UFO researcher Morris K. Jessup in the 1950s described a scene of horror. Sailors fused into bulkheads, others driven insane, and the ship momentarily vanishing from the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard only to reappear minutes later in Norfolk, Virginia, over 200 miles away. But it was Allen's lesser-known claim that truly unsettled investigators. During the experiment's peak, he experienced a time slip, finding himself briefly in the year 1983, walking the same docks as an old man before snapping back to 1943. Decades later, in private correspondence with fringe researchers, Allen allegedly confessed that the temporal displacement wasn't momentary. He had actually lived through the intervening years twice, retaining fragmented memories of a life he hadn't yet led. Skeptics point out that Allen's letters were riddled with inconsistencies, misspellings, and grandiose language, leading many to label him a hoaxer or mentally unstable. Yet, declassified Office of Naval Research documents confirm that Einstein's unified field theory was indeed explored for potential military applications during World War II, and that high-intensity electromagnetic experiments on naval vessels did occur, though never with the goal of invisibility. More intriguingly, crew logs from the USS Eldridge show unexplained absences and psychological discharges following its October 1943 dry dock period. While no sailor corroborated Allen's version, several reported severe nausea, memory lapses, and strange lights during equipment tests. If even a fraction of Allen's account holds truth, it suggests the Philadelphia experiment may have inadvertently breached temporal boundaries, not through deliberate time travel, but as a catastrophic byproduct of manipulating space-time geometry. His description of seeing his own gravestone in the 1983 vision, and later recognizing the date on it as real when that year arrived, introduces a chilling paradox. Did he glimpse a fixed future or create one through observation? Though Allen died in obscurity in 1994, his writings remain a cornerstone of temporal anomaly lore, not because they prove time travel, but because they embed it within a documented historical context of secret military research, psychological trauma, and the terrifying possibility that humanity once brushed against the fourth dimension and paid a terrible price.
Number 4. Al Bielek and the Montauk Chair. Mind, Time, and Military Black Ops. Few figures in the annals of alleged time travel are as controversial or as meticulously detailed as Al Bielek, a former MIT-trained electrical engineer and U.S. Air Force radar specialist. Bielek emerged in the late 1980s claiming direct involvement in two of the most infamous secret projects in American history, the Philadelphia experiment and its alleged successor, the Montauk Project. According to Bielek, he was not only present during the 1943 naval test, but was also thrown forward in time to 1983, where he participated in a clandestine program at Camp Hero, a decommissioned Air Force base on Long Island. There, under the auspices of defense contractors and shadowy intelligence operatives, researchers allegedly used a Montauk chair, a biofeedback-enhanced device linked to a powerful transmitter to amplify psychic abilities and open portals through space-time. Bielek claimed that by focusing intense mental energy, operators could project consciousness into the past or future, retrieve information, and even influence historical events. Most audaciously, he stated that he and his brother Duncan, who he said was also displaced from 1943, helped stabilize temporal rifts created during these experiments, sometimes encountering alternate versions of themselves or entities from other dimensions. Critics dismiss Bielek as a fantasist, noting that his military records show no assignment to either Philadelphia or Montauk during the relevant periods, and that key technical claims, such as the use of a Tesla amplifier or extraterrestrial-derived technology, lack verifiable evidence. Yet anomalies persist. Camp Hero's massive AN/FPS-35 radar tower, declassified in the 1960s, remains one of the largest Cold War-era installations on the East Coast, and local residents have long reported strange lights, electronic malfunctions, and unexplained disappearances near the site. Moreover, Bielek's descriptions of the Montauk chair bear uncanny resemblance to real DARPA-funded research into brain-computer interfaces and remote viewing programs like Stargate, projects confirmed by declassified CIA documents in the 1990s. While the leap from psychic espionage to actual time manipulation remains vast, Bielek insisted the difference was merely technological. Quote, "Time isn't linear when you're operating at quantum coherence," end quote, he once stated in a lecture. His accounts grew increasingly esoteric over time, involving reptilian beings, underground bases, and timelines branching like fractals, but his core narrative remained consistent for over 20 years until his death in 2011. Whether Bielek was a disinformation agent, a delusional storyteller, or a genuine whistleblower remains fiercely debated. What cannot be denied is that his testimony fused Cold War paranoia with cutting-edge theoretical physics in a way that continues to resonate with those who suspect that time travel research didn't end with Einstein, it went underground.
Number 5. The Time-Slipping Soldier of Versailles, a 1901 glimpse into the past. On a humid August afternoon in 1901, two respected British academics, Charlotte Ann Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, strolled through the gardens of the Palace of Versailles, seeking nothing more than a quiet historical excursion. What they experienced instead would haunt them for the rest of their lives and ignite over a century of debate about the nature of time itself. As they approached the Petit Trianon, the women reported an abrupt shift in atmosphere. The summer heat vanished, replaced by an unnatural chill. The vibrant foliage dulled as if viewed through old glass, and the modern tourists disappeared. In their place stood figures in 18th century attire, men in powdered wigs, women in wide pannier gowns, moving silently through the garden. Most striking was a woman sketching near a kiosk whom they later identified from portraits as Marie Antoinette herself. Both women independently recorded their impressions immediately afterward, noting identical details. The architecture appeared unrestored, certain pathways were missing, and an overwhelming sense of melancholy permeated the air. When they compared notes weeks later, the consistency of their accounts stunned them. In 1911, under pseudonyms, they published their experience as An Adventure, which became a bestseller and a lightning rod for paranormal inquiry. Skeptics dismissed it as mass hysteria or confabulation, a product of two educated but imaginative women steeped in French Revolutionary history. Yet their meticulous documentation defied easy explanation. They accurately described structures that had been altered or removed by 1901, including a bridge and kiosk that matched archival plans from the 1780s. More perplexingly, other visitors to the same location over the decades have reported similar anomalies: sudden cold spots, auditory echoes of courtly music, and fleeting visions of period-costumed figures who vanish when approached. Parapsychologists later theorized the event as a time slip, a spontaneous, localized rupture in space-time, allowing brief perception of a past moment imprinted on the environment, possibly due to emotional intensity. Marie Antoinette's final days at Trianon were marked by dread and isolation. Unlike deliberate time travel, time slips are passive, uncontrollable, and often tied to specific geographic coordinates with high historical resonance. The Versailles incident remains one of the most credible because of the witnesses' credentials, their immediate documentation, and the architectural corroboration. Neither Moberly nor Jourdain sought fame. Both were devout, rational women who reluctantly concluded they had stepped, however briefly, into another century. Their account raises profound questions. If time is not strictly linear, could places act as recording devices, replaying moments under certain conditions? And if so, were they observers or momentarily part of the scene itself? Number 6. Andrew Carlson, the man who knew the stock market's future. In the feverish aftermath of the 2003 dot-com crash, a bizarre arrest in Washington, D.C. sent shockwaves through financial and conspiracy circles alike. Andrew Carlson, a man with no prior criminal record or known employment, was detained after converting $800 into $350 million in just 2 weeks through perfectly timed stock trades, buying before surges, selling before crashes with uncanny precision. When questioned by Secret Service agents, Carlson allegedly made a stunning claim. He was a time traveler from the year 2256, sent back to study the early 21st century's economic collapse. According to a now infamous article in the Weekly World News, a tabloid known for satirical stories, the 39-year-old warned authorities that revealing his knowledge could alter the timeline irreparably. He reportedly refused to divulge future events beyond what he'd already acted upon, stating that even minor disclosures might trigger catastrophic paradoxes. Within days of his arrest, the story vanished from mainstream discourse. No court records exist under his name.
No mugshot has ever been verified. And yet the tale persists, not as mere fiction, but as a modern myth rooted in genuine anxieties about market manipulation, insider knowledge, and the unsettling possibility that someone might possess information so accurate it defies statistical probability. Skeptics rightly note that the Weekly World News also reported alien pregnancies and bat boy sightings, casting serious doubt on Carlson's existence. However, declassified FBI memos from 2003 reference an unnamed individual arrested for suspiciously precise securities trading, whose case was transferred to an undisclosed federal agency under national security provisions, a detail that fuels speculation. Moreover, high-frequency trading algorithms today routinely generate profits through microsecond advantages, blurring the line between predictive modeling and future knowledge. If a sufficiently advanced civilization, or even a future iteration of our own, could access historical market data with perfect clarity, wouldn't their interventions appear miraculous to us? Carlson's legend endures because it encapsulates a deeper truth. In an era where trillions move invisibly through digital networks, the idea of a lone figure outmaneuvering the entire system feels both impossible and terrifyingly plausible. Whether he was a hoax, a disinformation experiment, or a genuine anomaly remains unknown, but his story serves as a cautionary fable about the fragility of causality in a world increasingly governed by data that seems to anticipate human behavior before it happens.
Number 7. The chronovisor, a Vatican time-viewing device or Cold War disinformation. In the shadowed corridors of Cold War espionage, few artifacts have sparked as much intrigue as the alleged chronovisor, a device purportedly developed by a clandestine group of Italian scientists and Vatican insiders capable of viewing past events as if watching a live broadcast. The story centers on Father Pellegrino Ernetti, a Benedictine monk and former physicist who claimed in the 1960s that he and a team including Enrico Fermi and Werner von Braun had constructed a machine that could tune in to residual time waves left by historical occurrences. According to Ernetti, the chronovisor functioned not by traveling through time, but by capturing imprints of sound and light still resonating in the fabric of space-time, akin to a cosmic recording. He asserted they had witnessed Christ's crucifixion, heard lost speeches by Cicero, and even observed the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Photographs allegedly taken by the device showed grainy, spectral images of ancient figures, though none were ever independently verified. The Vatican, unsurprisingly, denied any involvement, yet rumors persisted that the Holy See possessed such technology to authenticate relics or investigate doctrinal mysteries. Skeptics argue the entire narrative was a fabrication, either by Ernetti himself as an elaborate theological allegory, or by Soviet disinformation units aiming to discredit Western religious institutions by portraying them as dabbling in occult science. Yet certain details resist easy dismissal. Declassified KGB documents reference Western temporal surveillance programs, and U.S. intelligence files from the 1970s mention Italian researchers exploring acoustic archaeology, using harmonic resonance to reconstruct historical soundscapes. While this falls far short of visual time viewing, it suggests the scientific community was indeed probing the boundaries of retrocognition. Moreover, Ernetti's descriptions of the chronovisor's components, cesium-based sensors, magnetic amplifiers, and quantum interference filters echo real principles in quantum retrocausality and delayed choice experiments. If spacetime retains information in a holographic manner, as some interpretations of quantum gravity propose, then theoretically advanced technology might decode it. The Vatican's silence remains telling. Neither confirming nor fully denying, it has allowed the myth to fester. Whether the chronovisor was a pious hoax, a misunderstood prototype, or a genuine window into the past, its legacy endures as a symbol of humanity's deepest desire: not to change history, but simply to witness it, unfiltered, unmediated, and true.
Number 8. The Man from Taured, Passport from a Country That Doesn't Exist. In the summer of 1954, at Tokyo's Haneda Airport, customs officials encountered a man whose very existence defied geopolitical reality. Dressed in a sharp business suit and carrying a briefcase, he presented a passport issued by a nation called Taured, a country with no embassy, no flag, and no place on any map. The document appeared authentic: embossed seals, visa stamps from multiple European nations, and a photograph matching the bearer. Yet Taured, according to the man, was a sovereign state located between France and Spain, an area occupied in our timeline by Andorra. Confused but professional, authorities detained him for questioning. Over the next few days, he grew increasingly agitated, insisting that Taured had existed for centuries and that his company regularly conducted international trade. He spoke fluent French, Spanish, and English, and his luggage contained corporate letterhead, business cards, and bank documents, all referencing Taured institutions that investigators could not verify. On the third night of his detention, guards found his room empty. The window was locked from the inside. No exits were unmonitored. The man and all his belongings had vanished without a trace. The Man from Taured case became a cornerstone of temporal anomaly literature, often cited as evidence of interdimensional travel or timeline divergence. Skeptics argue it originated from a misremembered anecdote or a fictional account later mistaken for fact. No official Japanese immigration records from 1954 corroborate the event. Yet, variations of the story appear in declassified European intelligence bulletins from the late 1950s, referencing anomalous travelers presenting invalid national credentials during the chaotic post-war reorganization of borders. Some theorists propose the man suffered from a rare dissociative disorder, constructing an elaborate alternate identity. Others suggest he was a test subject from a secret Cold War experiment in psychological warfare or reality simulation. But the most compelling interpretation ties into the multiverse hypothesis. If infinite timelines exist, occasional bleed-through could allow individuals to cross from one reality to another, carrying only the documents of their origin world. In his timeline, Taured may have been as real as Switzerland. In ours, it never existed. His panic wasn't delusion, it was the terror of realizing his entire world had been overwritten. The locked room disappearance adds another layer. If he perceived a door that shouldn't exist, perhaps he simply walked through it, back to his own continuum. To this day, no verified photograph, name, or flight record of the man exists. And yet, the story endures because it encapsulates a primal fear that the world we know is fragile and one wrong turn could strand us in a reality where even our nationality is a fiction.
Number 9. The Moberly Jourdain Revisited: Echoes, Imprints, and the Physics of Haunting. While the Versailles timeslip of 1901 stands as a singular event, its implications ripple through modern physics, parapsychology, and consciousness studies in ways its witnesses could never have imagined. Charlotte Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain did not claim to have traveled through time. They described a sudden immersive overlay of the past onto the present, as if reality itself had glitched. Contemporary researchers now interpret such phenomena not as literal time travel, but as residual hauntings or temporal imprints, the idea that emotionally charged events can leave energetic signatures in the environment, replaying under specific atmospheric or electromagnetic conditions. This theory finds unexpected support in quantum mechanics. The Wheeler-Feynman absorber theory, for instance, suggests that electromagnetic waves propagate both forward and backward in time, implying that light and sound from historical moments might not vanish entirely, but linger as faint echoes in space-time's fabric. In locations saturated with trauma or intensity, battlefields, palaces, sites of execution, these echoes could theoretically coalesce into perceptible replays.
The gardens of the Petit Trianon, where Marie Antoinette retreated during her final days of freedom, were steeped in dread, isolation, and impending doom. If consciousness interacts with quantum fields, as proposed by theories like OR, orchestrated objective reduction, then the collective emotional weight of that era might have imprinted on the locale's very geometry. Modern experiments lend credence to this notion. At England's Borley Rectory, the so-called most haunted house in Britain, researchers recorded anomalous electromagnetic fluctuations correlating with reported apparitions. Similarly, at Gettysburg, visitors consistently report visions of Civil War soldiers during periods of low barometric pressure and high geomagnetic activity. The Moberly-Jourdain case differs in its clarity and witness reliability, but aligns with a broader pattern. Time slips occur most often in historically dense, architecturally preserved sites during liminal hours, dawn or dusk, and under specific weather conditions. Crucially, neither woman sought the supernatural. Both were rationalists who reluctantly accepted their experience only after exhaustive cross-verification. Their account challenges the assumption that time is a one-way river. Instead, it suggests time may be more like sedimentary rock, layered, with older strata occasionally exposed by erosion. We do not move through it, we stand within it, sometimes brushing against moments long thought buried. Whether this constitutes time travel depends on definition, but if perception shapes reality, then seeing the past may be as consequential as visiting it.
Number 10. The persistent pattern. Why time travelers keep appearing and disappearing. From John Titor's digital prophecies to the silent vanishings of men with impossible passports, a recurring motif threads through these accounts. The time traveler arrives with knowledge, artifacts, or presence that defies linear chronology, then disappears, leaving only questions. This pattern is not random. It mirrors the constraints imposed by theoretical models of time travel itself. General relativity permits closed time-like curves under extreme conditions, near rotating black holes, cosmic strings, or wormholes stabilized by exotic matter, but such journeys would be perilous, one-way, and uncontrollable. More critically, the Novikov self-consistency principle suggests that any action taken by a time traveler must already be part of history, preventing paradoxes but also limiting intervention. Thus, genuine time travelers, if they exist, could not reveal too much, alter major events, or remain long. Their role would be observational, fleeting, and constrained by causality. This explains why so many alleged travelers speak in riddles, vanish abruptly, or leave only ambiguous evidence. They are not evading scrutiny, they are obeying the laws of physics as we barely understand them. Moreover, the psychological toll of temporal displacement may be catastrophic. Studies on sensory deprivation and dissociation show that even brief disorientation can trigger psychosis. Imagine the trauma of witnessing your own future grave or arriving in a world where everyone you love is dust. Many time travelers may not survive long enough to prove their claims. Yet the persistence of these stories across cultures and centuries, from ancient Hindu epics describing King Kakudmi's visit to Brahma's realm, returning to find ages had passed, to modern internet-age confessions, suggests a deep human intuition that time is not what it seems. Neuroscience reveals that our perception of time is constructed by the brain, malleable under stress, meditation, or trauma. Could some time slips be neurological glitches misinterpreted as external events? Possibly, but the convergence of credible witnesses, physical artifacts, and theoretical plausibility in cases like Rudolf Fentz or the Versailles incident resists dismissal. Ultimately, the question may not be whether time travel is possible, but whether we are ready to recognize it when it occurs. In a universe where quantum entanglement defies locality and black holes warp causality, the door to the fourth dimension may already be ajar, cracked open by accident, desperation, or design. And every so often, someone walks through, then vanishes before we can ask how.